Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are cracking the code literally on a sound that nearly all of us make.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, that infamous joint pop, that knee crunch when you stand up, or that feeling of relief when you stretch your back, or even that habit of cracking your knuckles?
It's probably the most common sound the human body makes, and we're here to ask that big question.
Hmm.
Is that noise just harmless static, or is it your body, setting off a real alarm?
Right.
And the sources are pretty crystal clear here. An occasional accidental crack, that's fine. But repetitive, forced cracking often crosses a line from a simple quirk into a harmful habit.
A habit that can lead to some serious long-term wear and damage.
Exactly.
So our goal for you, the learner listening right now, is simple. We're going to give you a shortcut to understanding this. You're going to get the physical reason behind the sound, the psychology that drives the compulsion, because it is a compulsion for a lot of people.
It really is.
And most importantly, a comprehensive plan for protecting your joints for, well, the rest of your life. It is not just about the pop. It's about what that pop is telling you.
Precisely. And I think we need to start with the sound itself, because if the crack isn't, pathological, if it's not caused by a disease or some kind of structural failure, it usually boils down to a pretty fascinating physical process.
Okay, let's unpack that. I think everyone's heard of the gas bubble theory. How does that actually work? How does nitrogen gas make that satisfying sound?
Well, it's basically physics in a bottle or, in a joint. Every major moving joint in your body, like your fingers, your knees, is enclosed in what's called an articular capsule.
Okay.
And inside that capsule is synovial fluid. That's the joint's lubricant, its main source of nutrients.
Right.
When you stretch or move that joint really fast, you increase the volume inside the capsule. And that causes a sudden drop in pressure.
So you're creating a kind of vacuum.
Exactly, a little vacuum. And because that fluid has dissolved gases in it, mostly nitrogen, this pressure drop causes a tiny gas bubble to form.
Ah.
And as the joint keeps moving, where the pressure stabilizes, that bubble collapses. It implodes, really. And that collapse is what creates the audible pop.
That makes so much sense. And if that's the mechanism, it also explains why you can't immediately crack the same joint again.
That's right.
You have to wait.
Yeah, that's the refractory period. It takes about 20 minutes or so for those gases to dissolve back into the fluid.
Okay.
Only then can you build up enough pressure for another pop.
So if you try to force it before then...
All you're doing is grinding the joint surfaces together. You're achieving nothing but, potential damage.
Okay, so that's the harmless side. But the sources also make it very clear that sometimes the sound can be a lot more serious.
Much more serious.
A signal of actual articular failure? Or where what people call arthritis or osteoarthritis. What does that sound like?
It's different. That sound is usually less of a clean pop and more of a crunch or a grind, maybe a click, that comes with some pain or discomfort.
It sounds like something is catching.
Because something structural is catching or tearing. Think about the knee. If you squat and hear a grinding sound, that could be a malfunctioning meniscus, the cartilage shock absorber, that's torn and is, getting caught when you move.
And we also see this all the time in the jaw, right? The TMJ. A lot of people just ignore that click.
The TMJ is a classic example of this. That sound happens when the condyle, the little hinge part of the jawbone, moves out of alignment and then snaps back into place.
An unlocking.
Exactly. And the sources point out that while this might not be dangerous at first, if it's happening every single day, multiple times a day, it is absolutely causing long-term accelerated wear on that joint. It's structural noise.
Okay, so we know how the sound is made. Let's get into the why, the compulsion. If that first crack feels good, why do people feel this need to keep forcing it day after day? It's all about that feeling of tension, right? We're chasing a release.
We are. And what's interesting here is understanding how that temporary relief happens, and more importantly, why forcing it is so damaging. To get a crack, especially in your neck or back, you have to push that joint beyond its normal, comfortable range.
And when you push a joint past its functional limit, you risk what the sources call a subluxation. What does that actually mean?
A subluxation is just a fancy term for partial temporary dislocation. Think of your joint like a delicate hinge.
Okay.
When you force it to crack, you're briefly pushing that hinge a little bit off its track. It snaps back, of course, but doing that over and over causes damage on multiple levels.
And I'm guessing the surrounding tissues, the ligaments and so on, they take the biggest hit.
They do. First, you're overstretching the ligaments and the soft tissues that are supposed to keep the joint stable. It's like stretching a rubber band too many times.
It loses its elasticity.
It can't stabilize effectively anymore. Second, that constant friction wears down the cartilage, the smooth coating on your bones, and things like the menisci. Over decades, this leads to articular deformation.
And there's a neurological risk here too, isn't there?
Absolutely, especially in the spine. Excessive force twisting can briefly compress the nerves around the joint. Over time, that can lead to chronic nerve irritation and pain. It's a really high price to pay for a few seconds of relief.
Now, what about the mental side of this? The sources make a distinction between a simple stick, just a repetitive habit we pick up, and something more serious.
Right, like something bordering on obsessive-compulsive disorder, or OCD.
What's the difference there?
Well, if it's truly getting into that OCD territory, the person feels like they can't continue with their day, they can't work until they get that pop.
It becomes the main focus.
Yes, and that signals a really deep psycho-emotional need, or, more commonly, a profound biomechanical problem that's become destructive because they're only treating the symptom.
And when we do finally get that crack and we feel that instant rush of relief, why does it feel so good? What's happening there?
It's a reflex loop. The high-speed movement involved in that manipulation, whether you do it yourself or a professional does it, it creates this sensory overload. And that signals the surrounding tissue to just relax instantly.
Freddie feels great.
It feels wonderful, but it's a distraction. It's a short-term fix that does zero to correct the problem long-term.
And this is where the sources use that really powerful metaphor. They call it bread for today, hunger for tomorrow.
Precisely. You've satisfied the immediate craving for relief, but you haven't fixed the underlying biomechanical issue that caused the tension in the first place. And that is the most important concept we're going to talk about.
Which brings us to the core mystery here. We always focus on the joint that's cracking, but the research says the true source of the tension is almost never where the sound is.
That is the biggest insight from our sources. The need to crack a joint often starts because another joint, somewhere else, is blocked or rigid.
And so the cracking joint is overworking to compensate.
Exactly. The body is a master of compensation. If one part is stuck, the rest of the chain has to move excessively to make up for that lack of mobility.
So the tension or the pain that makes you want to crack, it's not actually the source of the blockage.
Correct. Imagine your body as a chain with many links. If one link rusts up and gets stuck, the links right next to it have to bend and twist and absorb all the extra stress so you can keep moving.
They become overworked, loose.
And painful, yes.
Can you give us some examples of where these primary blockages usually start?
They can start in some surprising places. A blockage could be in your sacroiliac joint, maybe from an old fall or lifting something badly.
Okay.
Or a chronic sprained ankle from 10 years ago that you never fully healed. That changes how you walk. And over time, that creates blockages in your lower back.
And of course, the neck and shoulders from sitting at a computer all day.
A huge one. Prolonged computer use, poor posture while lifting weights, all of it.
So here's the really counterintuitive part. Let's use the neck example. If my cervical spine is locked up on the right side, where am I going to feel the pain that makes me want to crack it?
You'll almost certainly feel it on the opposite side, on the left.
Why?
Because the blocked side, the right side, is rigid.
Yeah.
Can't move so it doesn't hurt. The body compensates by making the left side hypermobile.
Too loose. Too active.
Way too active. And that hypermobile joint is moving too much, wearing out faster, and causing all the inflammation and the pain that you actually feel.
And that's where getting a professional evaluation is just, it's non-negotiable. If you just go for a general manipulation,
You risk making it worse.
you're just making the already overworked hypermobile side even looser.
You could really aggravate the whole condition. The sources strongly recommend targeted care. An osteopath or a really skilled chiropractor who can see this global compensatory pattern, they need to find the blocked joint and free it, not just keep working on the painful one.
But even when that blockage is freed, the tension often comes back pretty quickly, right? Tissues have memory.
They absolutely do. Blockages can return in hours or days if the root causes, like weak stabilizing muscles or bad posture, aren't fixed. The mechanical fix is just the beginning. The real path to joint longevity is a total shift in habits.
That's a perfect pivot. So if we understand this is a system-wide problem, what does that integrative care plan for long-term joint health even look like?
Our sources lay out a very detailed 6-point plan, and we have to start with the most important one, diet. It is the absolute foundation of joint health.
How does what we eat affect the cartilage in our joints?
It all comes down to inflammation and alkalinity. The modern diet is often highly acidic and inflammatory.
Okay.
So the source of stress we have to avoid or severely limit four things: gluten, general flours, especially white flour, general sugars, and general dairy, particularly cow's milk.
And these things directly attack the cartilage.
They promote systemic inflammation, which degrades that delicate cartilage structure over time. Cartilage just hates inflammation.
So changing your diet directly reduces that internal friction.
Yeah.
Okay, what's the next pillar?
Movement. And I mean targeted, consistent exercise. We know strong muscles support our joints, but the sources go deeper. They explain the why on a biochemical level.
Oh, this is interesting.
When we strengthen our muscles, they release these amazing things called myokines. These myokines act like a localized nutrient boost, literally feeding the joints right behind those contracting muscles.
That's an incredible incentive to go to the gym. It's not just support, it's actual nourishment.
It is. And on the flip side, we have to avoid what the sources call the atrocious romance with the sofa and series.
Oh, I like that.
Sedentarism is joint degradation in slow motion. Without muscle use, you get atrophy, and your joints just start to suffer. Even just starting with walking or light pulley work makes a huge difference.
So we've covered physical tension, nutritional tension. What about regeneration? When do our joints actually repair themselves?
They only regenerate when you're completely relaxed, and that means sleep. The sources are so clear on this. You need 8 or more hours of restorative sleep every single night.
No exception.
No exceptions for real regeneration to happen. And they also suggest a semi-rigid mattress to support your articulations while you sleep.
And pillar number 4 deals with the stress of modern life.
Yeah, chronic stress is a joint killer. It elevates cortisol, the stress hormone. And when it's chronically high, cortisol will literally eat away your connective tissues and bone density. You can't heal your joints if you're constantly inflamed by stress.
And finally, we have the environment, which we often forget about.
Yes. The last 2 points are contact with nature and hydration. Getting outside sun, heat, cold, greenery, it's necessary for regulating inflammatory responses. And of course, staying hydrated keeps that synovial fluid plentiful. It keeps the system lubricated.
So if you get that lifestyle foundation solid, the sources also list some specific supplements that can help. But they say the combinations are key, right?
Absolutely crucial. You can't just take them in isolation. These are therapeutic pairings. First, vitamin D3, essential for bone health, must always be taken with vitamin K2.
And why is that?
K2 is like a traffic cop. It directs the calcium that D3 helps you absorb into your bones and keeps it out of your arteries where it can cause problems.
That's good to know. What about the cartilage building blocks?
For cartilage, you've got hydrolyzed collagen, but it always has to be combined with vitamin C. Vitamin C is what allows your body to synthesize and actually use the collagen. Without it, the collagen is much less effective.
And then there are the big ones for joint support.
Glucosamine and chondroitin sulfate, which provide the raw material for cartilage. And finally, MSM, that's an organic sulfur compound, should always be taken with silicon. They work together for connective tissue health.
Wow, that gives our listener a complete blueprint from understanding the crack to implementing the biochemistry of repair.
So let's just summarize the key takeaway here. If a joint crack comes with pain, or if cracking becomes a dependency, a tic, or a compulsion, that's a clear signal.
A signal that something's wrong.
It points to inflammation, cartilage wear, or most likely an underlying biomechanical compensation that needs a professional targeted look. Don't just treat the spot that's popping.
That is the critical piece of knowledge to walk away with. So, since we now know that pain almost always lives on the compensating side, the hypermobile side, what simple nagging tensions might you be noticing today that are actually pointing to a blockage somewhere else entirely?
Take a second to think about your body globally. If your chronic shoulder pain is driving you nuts, could the real problem be a blocked hip or pelvis? Challenge yourself today to take one small step, maybe toward muscle strengthening, or maybe just committing to those 8 hours of sleep. Joint longevity isn't luck. It's just a series of small, conscious choices. And that's where the real work begins.